The abandonment hook and suspense. The night sky was dark and endless. Stars glittered like cold diamonds above a silent desert world. The sand stretched in every direction, broken only by sharp rocks and lonely shadows. In this emptiness, a figure lay on the ground. It was a young alien woman, her silver skin glowing faintly under the pale moons. Her breathing was weak. Her clothes were torn. Her eyes, large and bright, were filled with fear. She was alone. A few hours earlier, she had been with her family. They had traveled across this wasteland together. She had believed she was safe with them. She had trusted them. But then, everything changed. Her family stopped in the desert. They told her she was slowing them down. They told her she was weak, useless, a burden. She begged them not to leave her. Her voice cracked as she cried, "Please, do not leave me alone." But their faces were cold, harder than stone. Turned away. Her father gave no answer. Her brothers whispered that she was not strong enough to survive in their world. And then, without another word, they walked away. She tried to follow, but her legs shook. She stumbled and fell into the sand. She reached out her hands, her voice breaking, but the sound of their footsteps grew quieter and quieter, until there was nothing. Now she lay in the dirt, abandoned by the ones who should have protected her, betrayed by the ones she had loved most. The desert wind was sharp and cold. It carried strange crisly calls of hunting beasts. She raised her head and saw dark shapes circling in the sky. Enormous winged creatures with sharp beaks and eyes that glowed red. Vultures. They had already seen her. They could smell her weakness. They circled lower and lower, their wings beating the air like drums of death. Her heart raced. She pushed herself up, crawling across the sand. Her hands shook. Her voice trembled as she whispered to herself, "No, not like this, not like this." But her strength was gone. She fell again, her cheek pressing into the cold ground. The vultures screeched above, closer now, shadows covering her body. Tears filled her eyes. She thought of her family, how easily they had turned away, how quickly they had decided her. Life was worth nothing. She thought of all the stories her people told, about survival, about strength, about abandoning the weak. She had never believed those stories would end with her. But here she was, left to die in the sand. The first vulture landed on a rock nearby, its long neck stretching toward her. Another landed behind her. She could hear the clicking of their beaks, sharp and hungry. The air smelled of dust and blood. Her chest rose and fell quickly. She wanted to scream, but her voice was too faint. She wanted to run, but her body refused to move. And then suddenly she saw something, far away, across the desert. A shape appeared. At first, she thought it was only another shadow. But no, it moved differently. It walked upright, steady, and strong. The vultures turned their heads toward it, uncertain that the alien woman blinked, trying to see through her tears. The figure was coming closer. It was not one of her people. It was something else, a human. He walked slowly, his boots pressing into the sand. He carried a small torch in his hand, its flame flickering in the wind. The light made his face half hidden, but his eyes were sharp and alive. He looked like a stranger from another world. The vultures screeched and flapped their wings, angry at this new intruder. They rose into the air, circling above again, waiting for the right moment. The woman's heart pounded. Oh, she did not know if this man was a savior or another danger. But he was the only living soul she could see. The human stopped a few steps away, staring at her. His expression was unreadable. He looked at her torn clothes, her glowing alien skin, her broken body. He could see she was not like him. He could see she was something strange, and yet her lips moved, forcing out a single word. Help. Her voice was so soft it almost disappeared into the desert wind. But he heard it. For a moment, he said nothing. His grip on the torch tightened. His eyes moved toward the vultures, who screeched impatiently, ready to strike. The silence stretched. Like a knife, would he turn away just as her family had? Would he decide she was not worth saving? The alien woman's heart sank. She thought she already knew the answer, but then he took a step closer. The flames of his torch pushed back the darkness. His shadow fell over her fragile form. His jaw tightened as he stared into the eyes of the waiting vultures. He was only one man, small against the desert, yet something in his stance was unshakable. The vultures hissed, beating their wings. The desert seemed to hold its breath, and in that moment, hope flickered inside her chest. Oh, a small, fragile hope, but brighter than anything she had felt before. Because unlike her family, this human had not yet turned away. The first encounter of the desert was silent, but not safe. The vultures circled in the air, their glowing red eyes fixed on their prey. The alien woman lay on the sand, her chest rising and falling weakly. The human stood a short distance away, holding his torch against the night wind. He had never seen a creature like her before. Her skin shimmered faintly under the moons, her eyes bright even in the dark. She was clearly not of his kind. She looked fragile, wounded, abandoned. And yet, there was something powerful about the way she stared at him, as if begging without words. Her lips moved again. The same word escaped, broken and trembling. Help. The human froze. That single word was enough to shake him. She could speak, she could plead. For a long moment, he did not move. He had survived this desert alone for weeks, avoiding danger, hiding from beasts and trusting no one. Helping her could cost him his life. The vultures above were already restless. If he made the wrong choice, they would strike. But something in her eyes stopped him from leaving. Something he could not explain. He stepped closer. The vultures screeched loudly, wings slashing the air. One of them dived down, its sharp beak aiming for the alien woman's face. The human reacted instantly. He swung the burning torch upward. The flames hissed as they caught the vulture's wing. The beast shrieked, pulling away into the sky. The others circled higher, unsure now, but they did not leave. The woman gasped. She had expected pain. She had expected death. Instead, this stranger had stood between her and the shadows. The human knelt down beside her. His face was stern, his eyes scanning her wounds. He did not speak at first, only studying her carefully. His mind raced. Who was she? Why was she here, alone in this desert? The alien woman tried to sit up, but her body failed her. She collapsed back into the sand, her breathing ragged. She whispered again, softer now. Please. The man sighed, almost annoyed at himself. He had promised long ago not to get involved with others. Survival was easier alone. But leaving her here? That was not something he could do. He slipped. One arm under her shoulders, lifting her slightly. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless, like her body was made of glass. She winced in pain, but did not resist. As he helped her up, the sound of wings filled the air again. Two vultures dived at once, their claws reaching for them both. The human cursed under his breath. He dragged her to her feet, forcing her to lean against him. With his free hand, he waved the torch in wide circles, the fire crackling fiercely. The vultures pulled back, hissing in frustration. Move, he muttered, half to her, half to himself. Together, they stumbled across the sand. She could barely keep her balance, her legs trembling like broken branches. He practically carried her, his muscles straining under her weight. The vultures followed, always close, always waiting for a mistake. The desert stretched endlessly. The wind howled, carrying sand into their faces. The human kept moving, his jaw tight, his eyes searching for shelter. Somewhere, anywhere to hide. The alien woman clung weakly to his arm. Her eyes closed and opened slowly, fighting against unconsciousness. She whispered something in her own language, words he could not understand. But her tone was clear. It was fear. He glanced at her. "Stay awake," he said firmly, even though he doubted she could understand him. "If you close your eyes, you're done." Her gaze met his. She did not know the words, but she understood his voice. There was strength in it, a promise of protection. Minutes felt like hours. The vultures never stopped following, their cries echoing across the desert. Each screech was a reminder of the danger waiting just behind them. Finally, the man saw Eton old stone ruin, half buried in sand. Perhaps once a watchtower, now nothing more than a broken shelter. But it was enough. He pushed forward, dragging her inside just as the vultures swooped again. The flames of his torch flared, forcing them back. Their claws scratched against the stone before they finally retreated into the sky, leaving angry cries behind. Inside the ruin, silence returned. The man set her down carefully against the wall. He dropped the torch into the sand, its light flickering. Weakly, for the first time, he allowed himself to breathe. The alien woman looked at him with wide eyes. She wanted to speak, but her throat was too dry, her body too weak. Still, she managed one broken question. "Why? Save me." The man's expression hardened. He looked away, as if the answer itself was dangerous. He did not like questions. He did not like bonds, but her voice cut through the walls he had built. At last he answered. His tone was low, simple, but unshakable. "Because you needed me." The words echoed in her mind. No one had ever said them to her before. No one. From her family, no one from her kind, to be needed, to be worth saving. It was something she had never known. For the first time, he allowed himself to breathe. The alien woman looked at him with wide eyes. She wanted to speak, but her throat was too dry, her body too weak. Still, she managed one broken question. "Why? Save me." The man's expression hardened. He looked away, as if the answer itself was dangerous. He did not like questions. He did not like bonds. But her voice cut through the walls he had built. At last, he answered. His tone was low, simple, but unshakable. "Because you needed me." The words echoed in her mind. No one had ever said them to her before. No one from her family, no one from her kind. To be needed, to be worth saving. It was something she had never known. For the first time, she felt a fragile warmth in her heart. Hope, but outside, the desert was not finished with them. Strange lights flickered in the distance, rising into the sky. They were not stars. They were not fire. The man narrowed his eyes, watching the horizon. Something was coming, and this night was far from over. The rescue of the ruin was small, just broken walls and sand-filled corners, but for now, it was their only shelter. The torch flame burned low, shadows dancing across the cracked stone. The alien woman leaned weakly against the wall, her silver skin pale and dull, her breathing shallow. The human crouched near the entrance, listening. The vultures had flown off for now, but their cries still echoed faintly across the desert. They would return. He knew it. His eyes shifted back to her. She was shaking, her eyes half closed. She looked fragile, almost ready to fade into the night. He muttered under his breath, almost to himself, "You'll die if you stay like this." She stirred at the sound of his voice. Her gaze lifted toward him, glassy but sharp with a single thought. Survival. She whispered again, her lips trembling. "Help, please." The words struck him like a blade. He had lived so long in silence, never hearing a plea like that. Something inside him, something buried, refused to turn away. He pulled a small canteen from his belt and pressed it to her lips. Water trickled into her mouth. She coughed at first, then drank greedily, as if tasting life for the first time. When she finished, her chest rose a little stronger. The man nodded, almost satisfied. But he knew water was not enough. The desert wounds were cruel. Her legs were bleeding where sharp rocks had cut her skin. Strange bruises ran across her arms. She would not survive long without care. He tore a strip of cloth from his own sleeve and began to wrap her wounds. His hands were steady, practiced. He had done this for himself many times before. She watched him silently, her glowing eyes filled with a strange wonder. Her kind had left her to die. But this stranger, this human, was tying her wounds with his own shirt. The question burned inside her, but her voice was still too weak to ask. The wind outside shifted. A heavy screech pierced the night. The human froze, his head snapping toward the entrance. The vultures were back. Their shadows stretched across the sand as they landed on the ruins, their claws scraping the stone. One peered inside with glowing eyes, its beak opening in a hiss. The man grabbed his torch and stood tall. The fire flared as he waved it, his stance firm, daring the creatures to step closer. The woman's breath caught. She had expected him to hide, to retreat. But he faced the monsters directly, like a wall of flesh and fire against the night. The first vulture lunged. Its wings beat the air like thunder as it tried to force its way in. The man shouted, slamming the torch into its face. Flames licked across its feathers. The beast screeched and stumbled back, smoke rising into the air. Another came from the side, its claws slashing at him. He ducked, grabbed a rock from the ground, and smashed it against the vulture's leg. The sound of bone cracking echoed in the ruin. The creature howled and stumbled back into the sand. The woman could only watch. Her heart pounded, not from fear of the vultures, but from awe. No one had ever fought for her. Not like this. The human stood there, breathing heavily, fire in one hand, a bloody rock in the other. The vultures hissed from outside, angry, but wary now. They circled again in the night sky, waiting for weakness. The man turned back to her. His chest rose and fell with exhaustion, but his voice was steady. "They'll be back. We can't stay here." She wanted to answer, but only a whisper left her lips. "Why? Risk your life." For a moment he did not speak. He looked at her, his face unreadable, then finally said, "Because I refuse to watch someone die when I can stop it." His words struck deeper than the claws of any beast. Her eyes watered, not from pain, but from something she had never felt before. Worth, he knelt beside her again, sliding his arms under her. She gasped as he lifted her, her body light in his stronghold. She clung weakly to his shoulder, her cheek against the rough fabric of his jacket. The desert stretched out before them again, endless and merciless. But this time, she was not alone. The human carried her into the night, torchlighting their path. The vultures followed, but kept their distance, wary of the fire. Hours passed. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she whispered strange words in her language, words he did not understand. But her tone carried fear, gratitude, and a fragile trust. Finally, he spotted something in the distance. A small canyon, its walls tall enough to hide them from the sky. He pushed forward, his legs heavy but unyielding. Inside the canyon, he found a narrow cave, deep and hidden. He carried her inside, setting her gently against the wall. The vultures circled above, screeching in frustration, unable to reach them here. The woman's eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, her voice soft but filled with something new. "You saved me." The human sat down across from her, leaning his back against the cave wall. His face was tired, his body sore, but he gave a small nod. "Rest. You'll need your strength." She stared at him for a long moment. In her heart, she felt something shift. She had been abandoned by her family, left to die. But this stranger, this human, had carried her through death's shadow. For the first time in her life, she believed she was not a burden. And for the first time, she believed in hope. But outside the cave, the desert was alive with new sounds. Heavy steps, deeper than the vultures. Something else was coming, something far worse. The night was not over yet. The hunt begins. The cave was dark and cool. The desert winds howled outside, carrying the cries of vultures. The human sat near the entrance, his torch fading into a small ember. The alien woman rested against the wall. Her eyes half closed, but her mind restless. For the first time since her family abandoned her, she felt safe. But safety in the desert never lasted long. Her gaze shifted toward the man. His face was sharp in the dim light, his clothes torn from battle, his hands scarred from survival. He had saved her life twice. But why? Humans were rare on this world. She had heard whispers of them, wanderers, survivors, outcasts. Yet this one had risked everything for her. She wanted to ask, but her throat was dry. Instead, she whispered, her voice trembling, "They will come." The man's eyes flicked toward her. "Who?" "My family," she said, the words heavy. "With pain, they left me, but they will not let me live. To them, I am shame. If I return, their honor is broken. They will hunt me until I am gone." The man was silent for a long time. His jaw tightened as he listened to the distant night. Then he said quietly, "Family should protect, not destroy." Her chest ached at those words. To him, it was simple. To her people, it was law. The weak must be abandoned. She was weak in their eyes, and weakness had no place in their tribe. Before she could reply, the desert gave its answer. A roar, deep and unnatural, rolled across the sands. The human rose instantly, gripping the ember torch and his makeshift stone weapon. His eyes searched the night. The sound was not the vultures. It was heavier. Closer, the woman's body stiffened. She knew that sound. Her people had released the hunters. They were not beasts of nature, but trained predators. Creatures bred and controlled to track and kill. Her family had set them free to erase her. The man caught the fear in her eyes. "What is it?" "Vultures," she whispered. "They will not stop. Not until I am dead." The ground trembled lightly. Heavy footsteps echoed across the desert floor. The man cursed under his breath. He looked at the weak torch, then at her trembling form. There was no choice. If they stayed, they would be trapped like prey. "Can you walk?" he asked. Her lips pressed together. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. She shook her head. Shame burned in her chest. No. The man didn't hesitate. He pulled her onto his back again, her arms hanging around his shoulders. He adjusted his grip and stepped out into the night. The desert stretched wide, silver under the moons. The sound of pursuit grew louder. The hunters were closing in. He ran as fast as his legs could carry them both. Each breath burned in his lungs. Each step sank into the sand. But still, he pressed forward. The woman's head rested against his shoulder. She could feel the beat of his heart, steady even in the face of danger. She whispered weakly, "Why do you not leave me alone? You could escape." His voice came rough between breaths. "Because I don't leave people behind." Her chest tightened. His words were simple, but they broke every law she had known. Behind them, shadows appeared. Enormous shapes with glowing eyes and long claws, moving faster than any human. The hunters, their growls shook the air, and their pace was relentless. The human glanced back. His grip tightened on her legs. He needed a plan. Running forever was impossible. Ahead, he saw jagged rocks rising from the sand. A small cliff, sharp and broken, with cracks that might offer shelter. He pushed toward it, his legs screaming with effort. The hunters roared again, closing the distance. One leaped forward, landing only a few steps behind them. Its claws tore at the sand, sending dust into the air. The man spun around, forcing the woman against the cliff wall. He lifted the dying torch high, its weak flame flickering in the wind. The beast snarled, its teeth glistening in the moonlight. For a moment, silence. The night itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the man charged. He swung the torch into the creature's face. Flames licking its fur, the beast shrieked, clawing wildly. The man ducked, striking again with the stone in his hand. The crack of impact echoed through the desert. The beast stumbled back, its growl turning to rage. The woman gasped, her hands trembling as she watched. Her body screamed for her to move, to help, but she was too weak. She could only whisper his name, though she did not even know it. Another hunter appeared from the shadows. Its roar was louder, angrier. The man stood his ground, blood dripping. From his arm where a claw had grazed him, his chest rose and fell, his face fierce. One man against the monsters of the desert, the hunters circled, their glowing eyes filled with hunger. The man raised his torch again, though the flame was dying fast. The alien woman pressed her hand to her chest. Something inside her shifted. Fear burned away, replaced by something she had never felt. Determination, she whispered to herself, not. Again, I will not be prey. Her family had abandoned her. The hunters had come for her life. But for the first time, she did not feel alone. A stranger had chosen to fight for her. Now, she felt a spark of strength she did not know she had. The man's eyes met hers. He gave the smallest nod, as if telling her without words, stand if you can. Fight if you must. The night was alive with growls, screeches, and the crackle of dying fire. The desert had become a battlefield, and the hunt had only just begun. Trust and betrayal, the desert was no longer silent. It was alive with the growls of hunters. Their shadows stretched long across the sand, glowing eyes fixed on their prey. The human stood in front of the alien woman, his body tense, his torch burning weak but defiant. The hunters moved slowly, circling like wolves. Their jaws dripped with hunger, their claws scraped against stone. They were patient, trained to strike when fear was at its peak. The alien woman pressed her back against the cliff wall, her chest rising in panic. She had seen hunters before, but never this close, never with her own life at stake. She wanted to run, but her legs were too weak. She wanted to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. The man's voice broke through her fear. Stay behind. Me. His words were simple, steady, carrying a weight that anchored her heart. He held his ground, though he knew the odds were against him. He was only one man, armed with a dying torch and a stone. But he refused to take a step back. One hunter lunged. The man moved fast, thrusting the torch forward. Fire licked the creature's face, forcing it to pull away with a screech. But another came from the side, claws slicing across his shoulder. Blood sprayed into the sand. He stumbled, gritting his teeth, but refused to fall. The alien woman gasped, her hands trembling. She reached out helplessly. No. He swung the stone at the beast, smashing it across the jaw. The crack echoed. In the night, the hunter reeled back, howling in pain. But his arms shook. His strength was fading with every wound. The woman's chest tightened. He was bleeding because of her. He was fighting because of her. And yet, a part of her heart whispered cruelly, "If he falls, they will come for me next. And if they kill him, we'll be alone again." The hunters sensed weakness. Their growls deepened. They crept closer, their movements slower now, savoring the fear. The man raised his torch once more. His breath came heavy, his vision blurred, but his stance never broke. His eyes burned with a silent vow. "Not while I'm alive." The woman felt her heart breaking. She wanted to beg him to run, to leave her behind, to save himself. But when she opened her mouth, only one word came out. "Why?" The man's answer came through gritted teeth, his voice rough but certain. "Because you matter." The words shattered something inside her. No one in her life had ever said those words. To her people, she had always been less, a burden, something to discard. But this human, a stranger from another world, bled and fought to keep her alive because he believed she mattered. Tears filled her eyes. She looked at him not as a stranger now, but as something far more. The hunters struck again. One leaped high, jaws wide. The man turned, slamming the torch into its chest. Flame spread across its fur. The beast shrieked and rolled in the sand, smoke rising into the air. But another claw raked across the man's side. He cried out, dropping the torch. The flame hissed against the sand and died. Darkness swallowed the clef. Cliffside. The alien woman's breath froze in her chest. Without fire, the hunters had no fear. Their glowing eyes pierced the night, closing in. The man staggered, blood dripping from his wounds. His knees buckled. He tried to stand, but the strength was leaving him. He fell to one knee. The woman's heart pounded. She could hear the hunters' growls, smell their breath, feel the ground tremble under their weight. The man raised his stone one last time, but his hand shook too much. He was going to die, and when he died, she would follow. "No," she whispered. Her body trembled, her mind screamed, but something inside her broke free. She was done being prey. She was done being weak. She pushed herself up from the wall, her legs shaking but holding. The hunters froze for a moment, surprised by her movement. Her glowing eyes burned in the darkness, brighter than they had ever shone before. The man looked up at her, his face pale, his breath ragged. "Stay back," he whispered, but she shook her head. Her voice, though weak, carried strength. He had never heard from her before. "I will not hide. Not anymore." The hunter snarled, advancing. She picked up the fallen torch, though no flame remained. She gripped it tightly, lifting it like a weapon. She felt fear in every bone, but beneath it, she felt something else: fury. Her family had abandoned her. Her people had called her weak, but this human had shown her another truth. Strength was not in blood or law, but in choice. And tonight, she chose to fight. The hunters lunged. She screamed, swinging the torch with all her strength. The wooden shaft cracked against one beast's skull, sending it sprawling into the sand. Another slashed at her, its claws grazing her arm, but she did not fall. She struck again, her voice fierce, her eyes blazing. The man, still kneeling, watched in disbelief. She was no longer the broken figure he had carried through the desert. She was something else now, something her family had never seen. Together, they stood, her grip on the torch tightened, his grip on the stone unyielding. The hunters circled, hesitating now. For the first time, they saw not prey, but fighters. The desert was silent except for the sound of their breaths. The alien woman glanced at the human, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "You saved me, now I save you." The words filled him with a fire stronger than any torch. He rose, staggering but alive, and stood beside her. The hunters roared, preparing to strike again. The battle was not over, but the alien woman was no longer running. She was ready. The choice the desert was quiet for a moment, but the silence was sharp, like the pause before thunder. The hunters circled in the dark, their glowing eyes fixed on the two figures standing side by side. The human bled from deep wounds, his chest rising unevenly, but he did not step back. The alien woman gripped the broken torch, her silver skin glowing under the moons, her eyes alive with a fire she had never known before. They were cornered, outnumbered, exhausted, and yet they stood. The hunters roared, but before they could leap, another sound cut through the night. The hum of engines. The woman's heart froze. She knew that sound too well. She looked up and saw lights descending from the sky. Her family's ship. The vessel landed in the sand with a hiss of steam. Shadows moved across the desert as armored figures stepped out, weapons gleaming. Her family had come not to save her, but to erase her. Her chest ached. Even now, after leaving her to die, they still wanted her gone. The human's jaw tightened. He did not know these figures, but he recognized enemies when he saw them. He raised his stone weapon, though his body shook from blood loss. The leader stepped forward tall, armored, his eyes cold. His voice carried no warmth. "You should not exist," he said to the woman. "You are weakness. You stain our blood. Tonight, it ends." The woman trembled. These were her people, her family, her blood. She had begged them once to love her. She had begged them not to leave her, but they had turned away, and now they returned only to finish what they started. The human moved in front of her, his voice sharp despite his pain. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The alien leader stared at him with disgust. "You defend what is broken. You are a fool, human." The woman's eyes widened. No one had ever stood for her like this. Not her father, not her mother, not her brothers. Only him. A stranger. A man who should have walked away. Her hands shook. She felt torn in two, the weight of her bloodline pressing against the pull of her heart. If she surrendered, maybe they would spare the human, but deep inside, she knew the truth. They would kill him too. Her people did not understand mercy. The hunters growled, waiting for a command. The armored figures lifted their weapons. The air was heavy with death. The woman took a step forward. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "No." The leader tilted his head. "No, I am not your prey. I am not your shame. You left me to die, but I live. One choose my own path now." The man behind her whispered, his voice weak but firm. "Don't stand alone." She looked back at him, meeting his eyes. He was pale, blood running down his arm, yet his gaze burned like fire. He had given her strength when she had none. He had shown her she mattered. Her choice was clear. The alien woman raised the broken torch like a blade. Her voice rang across the desert, stronger than she believed possible. "I choose him." For a heartbeat, everything froze. Her people stared, stunned by her defiance. The human's chest rose sharply with emotion, though he said nothing. Then, chaos exploded. The hunters lunged, their claws tearing at the sand. The armored figures advanced, weapons ready. But the woman did not run. She moved forward, striking the first hunter across the head. Her voice was fierce as she shouted, "I will not die for you." The beast stumbled back, howling in pain. Another charged, but she ducked low, swinging with all her strength. The torch cracked against its jaw, sparks flying. She had never fought before, but rage fueled her arms. She fought not just for herself, but for the man behind her. The human staggered to his feet, stone weapon in hand. Blood stained his clothes, but he stood beside her. Together, they struck at the beasts, every blow a defiance of death. The leader snarled, furious, "She is nothing. End them both." But the woman's voice cut through the night like fire. "I am not nothing. I am more than you ever allowed me to be." Her words carried weight, enough to shake even the hunters. For the first time, she believed them herself. One hunter lunged at the human, claws flashing. The woman moved faster than she thought possible, slamming the torch into its throat. The beast collapsed, choking. She turned, breathing heavy, her chest filled, not with fear, but with strength. The man glanced at her, pain in his eyes, but also pride. "You're stronger than you know." The hunters hesitated now, circling slower. Even the armored figures paused, as if unsure. They had expected weakness. Instead, they saw a fire neither beast nor blade could extinguish. The leader growled, but his voice cracked with anger. "You will regret this, both of you." The woman raised her chin, her eyes burning. "No, I will never regret choosing life." The desert roared with the sounds of battle, but in that moment, she felt free. Free from her family's chains. Free from her people's cruel laws. For the first time, she was more than a burden. She was a fighter, and she had chosen her side. Salvation. The desert burned with chaos. Hunters howled, claws ripping through the sand. The alien woman swung the broken torch again and again, her voice rising in defiance. The human fought beside her, his stone weapon dripping with blood. But his strength was fading fast. His breaths were shallow. Each movement sent waves of pain across his body. Blood soaked through his torn shirt. He was a man running on will. Alone, the woman's heart twisted as she saw him stumble. He had stood for her when no one else did. He had chosen her life over his own. And now he was breaking in front of her. She struck down a hunter, its body collapsing at her feet, and turned to him. "Stay with me," she begged. Her voice cracked, but her hands were firm as she steadied him. The human gave a weak smile. His lips pale. Still here, but not for long. Her eyes burned with tears. She had been abandoned by her family, left as prey, but she would not abandon him. Not now. Not ever. The hunters hesitated, their glowing eyes watching. The armored figures from her family still stood in the distance, silent, as if testing whether she would collapse. The leader's cold voice carried across the sands. "You cannot save him. He will die, as you should have." Her body trembled with rage. She shouted back, her voice breaking the night. "No, he saved me, and now I save him." Without another word, she pulled the human onto her shoulders. He groaned, but she tightened her grip. Her legs, once too weak to walk, now carried both. Their weights. The hunters roared and charged. She ran. Every step was fire in her muscles, but she refused to fall. The man's blood dripped onto her skin, hot and heavy, but she refused to stop. The canyon loomed ahead. If she could reach shelter, maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. Behind her, the hunters gained ground. Their growls shook the desert, their claws tearing the sand. She stumbled, nearly falling, but the human whispered weakly against her ear. "Don't stop. You're stronger than this." His words fueled her legs. She pushed harder, heart pounding, lungs screaming. She could hear her family shouting behind, ordering the hunters forward. But their voices no longer mattered. She reached the canyon's shadow. Rocks closed around her, forming narrow paths. She darted inside, pressing through the tight walls. The hunters crashing behind. At last she found it. An old human outpost buried in stone. Metal walls broken and rusted, machines long dead. But inside, she saw hope shelves of abandoned supplies, dusty but real. She laid him down gently, her hands shaking. His face was pale, his eyes barely open. She searched the shelves desperately. Boxes, wires, broken tools, and then she found it. A case marked with a human symbol for healing. Medical supplies. Her hands fumbled as she opened it. Bandages, a strange injector, bottles of clear liquid. She had never used these before, but she had watched. She had learned. She had to. She pressed the injector against his chest and pushed. The device hissed, releasing medicine into his body. His breath caught sharply, then steadied. Just a little stronger. Tears rolled down her face as she pressed bandages to his wounds, wrapping him with care. "Stay alive," she whispered. "Please, I cannot lose you." The hunters clawed at the outpost's walls, snarling and scraping. She turned, gripping the broken torch once more, ready to face them. But something had changed. She was no longer the same woman who had been abandoned in the sand. Her eyes blazed, her stance strong. "Come then," she said to the shadows. "I am not prey, not anymore." The beasts paused, uncertain. Perhaps they saw the fire in her eyes. Perhaps they sensed the shift inside her. Slowly, they retreated into the desert night, leaving frustrated. Cries behind. The woman sank to her knees, shaking. The human stirred, his eyes fluttering open. His voice was weak, but there was warmth in it. "You saved me." She smiled through her tears, brushing blood from his cheek. "You saved me. First, now we are even." His gaze met hers, and for the first time since his wounds. He laughed a rough, broken laugh, but real. The night grew quiet again. The vultures circled far above, but none dared come close. The outpost walls, weak as they were, held them for. Now, the woman sat beside him, leaning her head against the cold metal wall. Her heart was heavy with everything lost: her family, her people, the life she had known. But at the same time, she felt something new, something stronger than blood. She looked at the human, resting beside her, alive because she had chosen to fight. Alive because together they refused to surrender. For the first time in her life, she whispered words she believed. "I am not alone." The human turned his head toward her. His eyes were tired, but steady. "No," he said softly. "You're not." They sat in silence, the stars burning bright above the canyon. Two souls from different worlds, bound by survival, by sacrifice, by something greater than either had known before. The desert was still dangerous. The future was uncertain. But they had each other, and in the vast, endless night, that was enough.